Thanks, Con, for the intro. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining today's session. First off, just want to thank ESS for putting together this webinar for us. It's been great working with Con and Sherry and getting to know the team, and looking forward to meeting the rest of you guys. You always hope for a great turnout when you're doing a presentation. That's certainly what we have today. We got a good mix of visual, CSI, Sightline users in here. So I'm excited to jump in and show you how we're helping these users. So a little bit about me. My name is Michael Gianni. I'm a relative newcomer to cyber science, but I've worked in data since college, starting with student research. I was crunching numbers in RStudio for scientific papers. Then I went on to EMRs, working with medical records and surgery centers, and now business intelligence with a focus on ERPs. So I've been working primarily with visual users, and Jim Mon, some of you might be familiar with him. He's focused on Sightline and CSI. And then I'm here with Jeff Wilson, who's going to be covering for Jim while he's away on a trip. And Jeff will be doing the demonstration of Cyberquery. So I'm going to start with a quick overview of who we are, what we do, and I'll hand it over to Jeff for a live session into Cyberquery. We'll go over some tips and techniques. Then we'll look at some customer reports and some examples before we end with a Q&A. So we're scheduled for an hour. We'll aim to keep it within that time frame, maybe even a couple minutes early. But feel free to submit questions in the chat, and we'll answer them at the end. So I wanted to start off with a message from our founder. Managers at all levels tell us that it is too hard and too time-consuming to get all the information they need, when they need it, and in the format that they need. And this is the focus of cyber science. So cyber science is a software company that specializes in doing one thing and doing that one thing well, and that's BI. Our developers, consultants have been honing in their expertise in data and report building for over 45 years into what is now Cyberquery, or the Cyberquery suite. So we have offices in the United States, Denver, Colorado, which is actually where Jeff and I are. And we have offices in the UK and Australia as well. So we've been providing solutions for companies all around the world in all different industries. So today we're going to be looking at Infor ERPs, which we have over 20 years of experience in, beginning with Bond, Infor LN. And now we have hundreds of users between Sightline, CSI, and Visual. And with that, a great understanding of those Infor ERP databases. So the Infor ERPs, they're really great at what they do, and that's centralizing business data. And oftentimes reporting can sometimes be seen as an afterthought. It might be a headache, it might be a little time consuming, maybe only one person in the company really knows how to do it, but it's something that you're able to get by with until something happens. And this is typically when companies come to us asking, how can I see my ERP data better? And having a reporting infrastructure can allow you to respond quickly, maintain compliance when things change in the market or goals for the business change, or there's new ownership, new management, and they just want to see the business in a different way that hasn't been seen before. And they might be asking for metrics or KPIs or reports that you didn't know were possible to build. It might be during an ERP switch, which is already hard enough trying to get started in a new system. But having your data consolidated and organized between systems so you can continue normal reporting and processes is very vital in those mid-transition stages. And managing that historical data in older systems while processing new information in a new system can be pretty challenging, and that's a pretty common thing that people come to us with. And it could even be merger acquisitions, companies joining together, getting bought by the other. And in a lot of cases, there's just conflicting data sources and then a lot of pressure to integrate that data in those processes. And Cyberquery can be that bridge of information. This could be just nauseating when one company is using Visual and the other one's using Sightline or IFS, SAP. Streamlining that information is vital for collaboration and growth. So for those of you that have written a report or have needed to find an answer in the ERP, the first step is getting to the right data. And this is something that we do very well in the Visual, Sightline, and CSI environments. Cyberquery creates an environment for you to visualize your database and view relationships between tables with what we call the data dictionary. So we've created toolkits, And this is essentially a set of automated routines for visual, sightline, and CSI. And it's mapping out your database in an easy to read format so that you don't have to do the heavy lifting up front. And we're able to do this in not weeks or days, but in hours because of these toolkits. So you don't have to write SQL and then query it with another tool and then feed it into Cyberquery. The software already knows your ERP. It'd be like getting dropped in a foreign city, but you have Google Maps with you. So you can use your smartphone and you can find routes. You can still get around the city, as opposed to getting dropped in a foreign city and all you have is a paper map and you don't know the language. So we install it right onto your server so the data is safe in your environment. So whether you're locally installed in Visual or Sightline, or you're in the cloud with CSI, we're able to put that in a safe and secure environment for you. And a lot of sites have more than just the ERP, so we're able to include data from other sources. So Factory Track, SureShip, Salesforce, CPQ, and then we could put those into a separate or combined data dictionary. So that way, all your business data is consolidated and visualized in one place. Jeff's going to get more into this during the demonstration piece, but the data dictionary will show you where your data is coming from. And that way you can be confident that you're looking at accurate figures. And then from there, you can start to develop a deeper understanding of your database because it's being laid out in front of you. And this database can be, data dictionary can be customized. So different departments can have different views into select tables. For example, the sales guys might just want to see, a couple tables here and there to get a quick answer. But finance, they might want to see the entire database if they're building a really complex report. They want to see profit loss. There's a lot of different ways to customize it. So from the data dictionary comes the report writing aspect. And this is designed to take those large, complex data sets and to make it easy to find insights, make decisions through the drag and drop interface, which we're going to show in a moment. So that could be a simple ad hoc query to find an answer on an open order. It could be a report on inventory turnover or order fulfillment time, quality control metrics, or it can go as far as building a dashboard showing process KPIs on the shop floor looking for efficiencies. Over the years, we've built hundreds of reports for different users, and we can leverage those reports for anything that you might need to be built. So once those reports are built, sharing with them with the right people in a secure way is very important. They don't do much use when they're sitting in a folder somewhere collecting dust. So because Cyberquery is web-based, as long as you have a browser on your computer, tablet, smartphone, you can access those reports and dashboards from anywhere. And our Launchpad allows users to view finished reports, dashboards, analytics, real-time updates from a secure login page. And those could be set with access limitations for different employees. So you don't have to bug IT whenever you need to get a report or an answer to something. And then as an IT person, people aren't bombarding you with requests all day because the information is in a secure, accessible format for everyone. One of our Cyberquery users actually uses this platform as their main business operating system. And the way they do that is Cyberquery is reading the ERP data every few minutes, monitoring, collecting updates. And then with a module called the Queue Director, it deploys reports to the necessary people so they can receive an automated report in their email every morning of today's schedule, the tasks ahead, and they don't have to wait on anyone. It's automated first thing in the morning. And those could be shared in many popular formats. So Excel, PDF, HTML, or just a CSV. So bringing it back to the mission of cyber science, our goal is to get you the information that you need, when you need it, and in the format that you need. All right, let's get into a demonstration. Jeff, do you want to take it away?
Yep. Thanks, Michael. Let me share my screen. There we go. Good morning. I'm Jeff Wilson. As Con said, I'm the Vice President of Channel Sales for Cyber Science. So I've been doing this for many years, 30 plus, and I manage partnerships with our software partners who take Cyberquery and market it or embed it with their application. So as mentioned earlier, this tool can be utilized with any database in any industry. It really isn't specific to one or the other. Today, I want to show you kind of how I use the product, not only for helping my partners, but also for my own use. And we'll take you through a little bit about some of the power features that a new user could access, with the hope that over time they build the skills and are able to take it to more advanced level use. But I think you'll be able to see a lot today that you can just do with introductory training and the access to the data. So when a new user starts up Cyberquery, they're prompted with the wizard. The wizard asks them to pick a report to start with and then kind of guides them through the process. So let's start with a list report. A list report is a detail report. It's going to show me all the rows in a particular database table or group of tables. This is the data dictionary that Michael mentioned. As you can see, there are hundreds and hundreds of tables. The good news is you're going to get access to everything in your database. The bad news is it's a little bit overwhelming, isn't it? So what we want to do is try to focus our attention in certain areas. I like to typically look at the item table or the item master. So I'll use this search box to find item mast, and it's right here in the middle, and that will become the starting point for my query. So when I click on the next button, it's going to open up the item mast and present to me all of the different fields that are available for querying. When I'm starting with a new report, I don't typically have a big specification in front of me that tells me exactly what I want to do. Sometimes I'm just kind of trying things and want to see what the data shows me. So I would go through here and maybe click on a couple of these fields, item description and maybe unit cost. These will become columns in my report. The wizard could ask me additional questions like, how do you want to select and filter and so forth? But I just like to grab 3 things and hit finish. And what Cyberquery does then is it connects to your database, uses the interface that's provided by the vendor. So in this case, it's generating SQL behind the scenes, connecting to the SQL Server database that we have as a test environment or a demo environment. And then it's presenting the data back to me as quickly as it can grab it. So you can see that it's very fast. It's a server level product. In other words, Cyberquery, the engine that runs the reports, is running on a server as well as the database. So you're not connecting from a remote desktop to a database far away. You're actually connecting very efficiently, typically in a data center. So the first thing I see here is I've got a bunch of items with a unit cost of 0. It's kind of distracting. So if I just right click on that column, I can tell to select the records where the unit cost is not 0. And that'll narrow down for me to a group of items that now have some unit cost associated with them. I might want to see the most expensive first. So if I click on that same column again and move down here where I get to the sort area, choose to sort in descending order. As you can see, this is pretty easy to work with. We call this our report editor. It was designed to allow the user to click on things in the report page and make their decisions based on the prompted options. So when I right click on a column, it'll tell me what I can do at that given point. And it's really a nice way to help an end user get through the process of working with data. What we're seeing here is just text on a page. Maybe you'd like to polish it up a little bit. I'll activate what we call the paint tool and maybe bring out the column headings here with a little color and size. Additionally, I can group the data since we're looking at a large amount of rows here using the border tool. Go into the properties, introduce a little striping, and I like the blue and white stripe, and maybe just stick with an overbar and an underbar. Finally, if you want imagery in here, you activate the camera tool and pull in your logo. I'll pull in the Cyber Science logo here. So I can go from just an idea to a report that's presentable to someone in my team in about 5 minutes. This is what I like about Cyberquery. I'm not done with what I was creating, but what it shows you is that you can go from an idea to a very nice looking report in just very few steps. Now, Michael talked about the data dictionary, and this is really where Cyberquery shines. Many of the products that we compete against do like a real-time read of the database when you go to connect to it. We prefer instead to do an initial load when we install on your server and build a lot of additional value into that data dictionary. The reason for this is that new users who are working in a large normalized database often break down when it gets to the job of joining tables. So even though I've got my items here, I might want to see what kind of an inventory presence I have across my locations, but I have to go to a different table to do that. And if I don't know how to link those two together, it becomes challenging. And then I'm calling somebody in IT and saying, hey, help me figure this out. So what we do with Cyberquery is we build the data dictionary, and in the data dictionary, we build the joins. So I can just simply go over here to the data dictionary layout here and look for the item warehouse table. As I hover over it here, you see all the added additional information we store in our dictionary about the relationship between the table I started, which was item masked, and this table, which is called item warehouse. What it's telling me is the one-to-many. So for each of my items, I'm going to have multiple rows in the warehouse table relating to inventory. So let's take a look at what that is. I can now grab a few fields here like the site, reference, warehouse, quantity hand, quantity ordered, drag those onto my page, and a number of things happen. It handles the relationship for me. So now I'm seeing for each item, let me maximize the view here, the inventory situation in each of the warehouses. It also took my formatting that I had set up and automatically broke the striping to handle the fact that now we have a different data orientation. I didn't have to tell to do that. It did it automatically. So once again, I'm making my initial report better by adding additional information into it. And yet I'm not having to do a lot of technical things to get to that point. So I like this for its functionality. This is typically how I start reports. I start with an idea. I start to throw things on the page, and then I get to the point where I like what I have to see. And then when I'm at that point, I can save it and use it again down the road. Now, I quickly want to show you, I've got a bug in here. I quickly want to show you that behind the scenes, for what I was just dragging and dropping, this is the query that I created. This is the Cyberquery report specification language. This is then translated into SQL and passed to your database for the purpose of getting information. But what I really like about this language is when I choose to save this, I will have this script sitting on my server that drives this report. And it's portable. It's portable across different environments running the same database. So let's imagine you go to a user conference. I think the user conference is called SUN, right? Sightline User Network. You go to the user conference, you're sitting at breakfast and you're talking to somebody about what they're doing with Sightline, and they happen to mention they just implemented Cyberquery, and you say, oh yeah, so did I. How's it going for you? What are you doing? What kind of reports are you creating? That person may tell you that they've written a wonderful AR aging report, and you think, wow, I could use that one. And you say to them, hey, would you share that with me? And if they agree, they just add this query right here into an email, send it to you, and now you can run the benefit of their efforts, the logic they created. You can run it on your Sightline Cyberquery environment and get the benefit of their work. So the shareability, at least in my world where I have these partner relationships where they have many clients running the exact same ERP, the shareability of queries across customers is a huge added value. All right, I'm going to toggle back to the friendly interface because we're going to focus on the easy stuff today. So when I go to start a new report, it's going to ask me if I want to save it. I'll say yes. I'll call this one ESS. Say goodbye. And now that's saved. Not only the logic that created that report, but also the formatting that I put around it. So now I can call that up any day in the future, run it. It'll behave the same way, only it'll bring up the new data that has changed since the last time I ran it. Okay, so that was a list report. As I mentioned, it's a detail-oriented report. It reads a row in the database. It presents a row in the report. I like to work in what we call the summary report. So the summary report works at a higher level. It aggregates or summarizes information on the page and lets me break down or drill down through that data to get the presentation I like. Whenever I'm dealing with numbers, I like to start with summary because I can look at the high level number and go down into more detail. And I'm going to do that now in the invoice area. So up here in my search box, I'll put in invoice header in there, and it's going to bring me right right to the table I want. So as I mentioned, this is a summary of numbers. And so because of that, what you're seeing over here are only the numeric fields in the invoice header table. And the way I know that is there's an icon next to each one of these data elements, which tells me that it's a number 9 or a number. And that gives me some guidance on knowing that I'm not seeing the entire invoice header table here. I'm just seeing the numeric fields that are in the invoice header. So I'm going to grab the price component of the invoice, and I want to group it by the date. So if I go over here to invoice date, you'll notice that the icon's different. It's a calendar icon. So that's Cyberquery telling me, hey, this is a date field. Date fields contain months, days, years, and you can break it out by those elements. And as you can see, when I dragged it over, it assumed that I might want to start at the highest level, which is the year component of the date field. Once again, this is the data dictionary working for you, because the dictionary knows this is a date field, and then it allows you to use all kinds of date logic when you're working with this field. It's really powerful. I use this a lot. So I'm asking for price by year, and I get it right away. And what I see immediately is there's a huge disparity between the 2 years, and I want to know why. Why did it double in 1 year? Did we have a banner year or something else going on? So I'll grab the invoice date and drag it over here to where it says across, and Cyberquery goes, well, you've already used year. The next drop down would be month. And now I'm getting a breakout by month. And immediately I'm seeing zeros here. What does this mean? Well, it's kind of hard to scroll the page. Let's go up to the toolbar here, hit the pivot button. Now I can switch years and months. This makes a lot more sense to me. I'm looking at it like I typically would want to see it. And what we see here most likely is in our test or demo database, we have a partial year for 2017. We have a full year for 2018, probably more representative of the business. So I'm going to click on the 2018 and focus on it by selecting that. So this will effectively just take out 2017 for my analysis. I don't need the total anymore. I'm just looking at 1 year. Now I can do a number of things with this. First thing I say is the numbers seem to be kind of random up and down. I'd rather see this as a chart. Up on the toolbar here, you're going to see a button that says convert your report. I'm going to convert this to a chart in a new tab. What Cyberquery will do is take my data set and it'll plot it out for me. And I find this very helpful because it gives me a chance to see my data in a chart format. There we go. Let me maximize the view. I have a little latency today. I wonder if it's because we're on Teams. Typically that just pops right up. So now I can plot out and see my data in a visual form. And often when you're trying to share this with other people, this is a great way to illustrate for their benefit what you've got here. You've got 12 months in the year of 2018, and these are the invoice totals for those months. So obviously April is our most dominant month. Cyberquery includes a nice chart wizard here. You can choose of many different types of charts if you want. But I typically, it's kind of crazy one. I typically like the bar chart because it gives me what I want to see. We can bring in a regression line to see what the trend is. The trend will be showing us that it's slightly downhill. I can also bring in maximum, minimum, and averages as well. Interesting, I'm having a delay today. A couple things I'll point out that you can take off the year if you want. So I'll just hit the delete button and remove it. There's my lines. And then what I can do is go down here and add a title to the report. So I can say invoice totals by month for 2018. Bring that into the chart instead, and that way it highlights for me at the top what we're looking at here, and I don't have to have it for each one of the months there. So that's one way of presenting the data. Another way would be to go back to my original sum and look at using something like a bullet chart. Bullet chart is a neat feature that we offer in our product, which will integrate an inline graphic with the numbers. You think about when you create reports and you might want to send it to someone who's going to look at it on their phone. This is a lot easier to read on a phone than a big wide chart. So the inline graphic of the bullet chart gives you an understanding of what you're looking at. This particular chart or this particular report ranked the months. So I can see here that April is the most dominant month. But when I'm looking at it this way, I'd almost rather see it in its sequential order, January, February, March, rather than sorting by month. But what would work well in this mode would be potentially looking at it by the customer instead. So I'm going to grab the customer number, drag it over here to where the X comes up, and now I get the same presentation, but for a different data element. Now I'm looking at total invoices by customer for the same year. So we call this train of thought querying. I use it a lot. I'll look at something and I'll say, can I make this message or this report a little bit better by changing the focus? Instead of looking at it by date, let's look at it by customer. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't have all my customer numbers memorized. I need their names if I'm going to know who they are. Well, that's up here in a table called Customer Address Master. And the only way I know that is because I went looking for it in the past, and I figured out that it's not the customer table I want, it's the customer address table. So once again, the biggest challenge to users when they're doing reporting is finding the data and being able to get to it quickly. So right here, I've got the customer's name in the address master. Once again, the data dictionary is doing its job for me, and it'll fill in that data automatically. Now you see, now I've got this unique orientation. I've got customer numbers with multiple names. And while it's helpful to see the breakout, it's confusing somewhat in my chart. So I think I'll just go up here and remove the number and focus on the name. So take the number away. Now let's just rank it by name, and I can see, who my most dominant customers are in terms of invoiced activity in this database, the current year, which is 2018. So different ways of presenting data, different ways of sending the message. Obviously, you can translate this report into a number of things. We do Excel, we do HTML, PDF, CSV. This one won't be as good as CSV because we've got an inline graphic. But what I'd like to do now is take away a little bit, or not take away, but leave the development mode and show you some of the options with regard to deployment. So in a typical Cyberquery environment, you have, I need to move this toolbar here. There we go. You have a number of people who are going to get trained on how to create reports and then develop them. But you'll typically have a larger audience of people who just want the benefit of those reports. In other words, they want to get to them, and they want to run them, they want to see them, but they don't really want to know how it was made. And they don't want to learn the skills to be experts at databases and query development. So for them, we have a number of different deployment options. Michael went through them in detail in his presentation. We can schedule these reports to run through automation and automatically deliver them to the user. We can publish them in our runtime environment, which is where I am now. It's just a simple launch point listing out all the reports that I have as examples, and I can just click on it and run it simply by clicking on it here and running it. And what you'll see is I'll get a report that I previously created that showed me orders by customer. This one's unique in the sense that it's focusing on a single salesperson. And so for the end user who's not going to write queries but wants to vary the salesperson, they simply go up here and click on this run button. And what it'll do is it'll start the report, which is going to ask them to choose the salesperson to focus on. Once again, I'm focusing on their initials rather than their full names, but I only got 7 salespeople, 8 salespeople, so I can remember who's who by initials. So I changed the focus to Mr. Stockton here, or Mrs. Stockton, I can't quite tell, and it changes the data. So it's a great way of deploying reports to that wider audience without expecting them to know anything other than browser navigation. Michael mentioned earlier that we support multiple devices. If it's a browser-based, if the device supports displaying something in a browser and you can connect that device to your Cyberquery server, you're good to go. So a lot of people will do these on their phones or on their tablets rather than running them on their desktops as I am here. But it doesn't matter. It behaves the same way every time. Let me show you some more examples of reports. We've got some more detailed ones here. This gives you an example of the kinds of things that we do for clients. I've got a GL summary by month current year. Once again, my current year is 2018. But this is a wonderful breakdown of all the GL activity. And as you can see, we've got active hyperlinks on those fields that are not zero. So when I click on a field, it's going to now drill down, which is effectively calling a second report that was previously created, and give me the breakout for that account in that period as I've requested. So this is a wonderful tool to give to your end users, because what you're giving them is a summary presentation with the ability to go in and see exactly what makes up those numbers. And that's a key component, because when you see a dominant number like 30 million, when everybody else is somewhere in the 500,000 to 1 million, you want to know what's strong about that particular account in that month. What I'll show you here is also, we talked earlier about architecture and speed. Cyberquery was built to be a server level product, to be as fast as possible. In other words, we want to connect locally to another server where the database is to get the data. In this case, I'm running on my laptop in the office, and I'm connecting to a server on our network, which has the Sightline demo database. But I'll run this report live so you can see what the performance is like, and this will give you an understanding of connectivity. It starts off, and you can see that, wow, it ran a lot faster earlier. I think something about being on Teams gives a little latency. But basically, we got about 350,000 rows that make up this report, and that report will process in under 20 seconds, I'd say. And what's neat about this is that if you're dealing with large data sets, you won't be sitting there watching your reports running for hours. They typically run in minutes, seconds, sub-seconds for some reports. And that's really handy, because if you want to see things and see them now, you don't want to sit and watch a dial spinning for an hour while it reads through all the history that you have in your database. Looks like we're done. Our 3 pages are complete, and basically I have the same report that I saw before. All right, let me show you a different one. We talked about dashboard presentations. I created a couple of charts. Well, I often say beauty's in the eye of the beholder. Jim Mon created this report. I think it's a little bright in colors, but I won't make fun of it because he did do it, and I got the benefit of seeing what he created. But here, effectively, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 reports combined on a single page, distributable through a website or through an email if you want. But it has a lot of information that's useful around sales and for sales activity. And again, it increases the readability and acceptance by the end users, because it's giving them a lot of data points in one compact document. As you can see over here, we've got a combination of charts and details. We have this feature here that we call our compress feature, which means we're taking all of the data and encapsulating it in an HTML document. Kind of a technical term, but what it means is if I mail you this document and you don't have access to the database, you'll still be able to click on the individual's names and see the detail breakout without having to connect to the database. So all of these details that make up the summary numbers are encapsulated in this document. It's a really nice way to send somebody a summary of sales activity with the ability for them to break it out in a little more detail. And once again, they don't have to know Cyberquery. They just have to know how to click on a field in a browser. All right, so I keep wanting to ask for questions, but I know this is done through the webinar, not live. So let me think about, last thing I want to show you is some of our interoperability with Excel. So I'm going to go back to my GL summary here, and you'll notice up on the toolbar, we have an export button. And when I click on that, it'll provide the options for me. I want to see this in a spreadsheet. So what we found is the people who love Cyberquery are also the people who love Excel. This is just a fact. And so everything we do with our product is about making interoperability with Excel as strong as possible. Here we go, open file, clicking in the wrong area. Now it's working. I don't know what the latency is today, but I think it has to do with maybe the Teams connection. Here it comes. Beautiful. Okay, so there's the report that I was just looking at. Now it's been generated into an XLSX file for me. And you say, well, what does that mean? Well, that means that I've generated a spreadsheet on my Cyberquery server, which is exactly in the Excel format. I'm not cutting and pasting the data and putting it into Excel. I'm actually generating something that Excel recognizes, including formulas. So where I have totals, you should see working formulas. If I can get to the bottom here, there we go. Yeah, there we go. Summarization right there. So the beauty of this is that a lot of your users will want their data sent to them in the format they like. And as I mentioned, with a lot of Cyberquery users, that preferred format is Excel. And so what I've got now is that that GL summary report in a spreadsheet. That means I can share it with somebody in this format. I can actually click on and drill down as I did before using the same active hyperlinks. So it gives me the functionality that I had in the browser now in Excel. It's really powerful because this thing is going to be utilized by various people different ways, and to keep those links active, make it very appealing for them. So Cyberquery, as I mentioned, and Cyber Science, I should say, works on Excel integration as a core component of our product. In this case, I took an existing report and I pushed it into a spreadsheet. So this is now this is shareable. We also offer an Excel plugin. So what does that mean? That means that I can go up here on the toolbar, you'll see some familiar drop downs, and at the end is one called Cyberquery. So this actually plugs into Excel and allows me to interact with Cyberquery server for the purpose of loading existing Cyberquery reports. So I got to go through my login here, and I'll go to my GL example here and hit the word finish. And what this is going to do is it's going to take an existing Cyberquery report that's been built, tested, and verified, and allow me to run it for the purpose of populating a tab on a spreadsheet with the current data around our financial statement. A lot of our users will do analysis in Excel where they will reference explicit cells on one tab for the purpose of building a budget forecast or whatever on the other tab. And so what's neat about this technology is when you lay a report out this way, where you have the 12 months across the page and your two categories, net sales and other revenue, on lines 6 and 7, is that the other tab can reference these explicit cells for the purpose of doing other analysis. So when you refresh this data, the analysis continues to work because it's still looking at that cell position, only now it's grabbing the new numbers. We have clients who have taken this capability and gone crazy with it. I know of one who has 42 divisions, and they have a tab along the bottom here representing each of the 42 divisions. And so when they fire up their spreadsheet, they hit the refresh up here, refresh all, and it will go out and run all 42 queries to gather the data, populate this spreadsheet or workbook, I should call it really, for each of those tabs with all the divisions. They can then go tab by tab looking at the actual data in each one. They're actually balance sheets they're loading into the tabs. They can look at each one and quickly spot problems. And where they have a problem, they can drill down, as I just did, in order to see more detail around what's going on with that summary number. And so it's really a powerful solution. It was built one time. They utilize it extensively. And it's almost like it's its own standing application, but it's basically a combination of an Excel spreadsheet with a Cyberquery backend for the purpose of querying the live database and updating that master spreadsheet for their users. I think that's a good example to end on. So what I've done here is shown you a couple live examples. I think in my 25 minutes, we've created about 3 or 4 different reports. That's kind of my expectation with Cyberquery as I use it. When I need it, I don't need to spend 3 hours polishing and making the world's greatest report. Oftentimes, I'm just looking for data, looking for something that seems out of whack, and then wanting to drill down into it. Cyberquery facilitates that very, very well. It's reasonable to expect that you can take the product in-house, take a training class, start to use it the way I did, gradually build your skills, and over time you can become quite proficient at this product. And then it's funny, anytime somebody sends me any kind of a spreadsheet or a CSV file, maybe one of my partners, maybe I get it from another vendor. When I get that spreadsheet or that CSV, I just drop it into Cyberquery. Cyberquery allows me to just drop it on top of the product. It will interrogate the structure and it'll actually create a data set that I can write queries against immediately. It's a powerful feature, and it's something that we live with here day to day in managing our own business. So I will pause my efforts here and take a look at questions while Michael takes over and wraps up with some better examples than mine. He's got some more complicated reports to show you, and then he's going to talk a little bit about a new financial product we're working on. Thanks for your
Thanks,
time.
Jeff. Let me share real quick. All right. And Jeff, you can see this screen all right, correct?
Yes.
All right, perfect. So Cyberquery is designed for you to go in there and start building your own reports, but every once in a while, there's a behemoth that needs to be built, and Cyberquery is able to do that as well. So I wanted to show some examples of reports that we have built for users over the years. So this is a CSI, a multi-tenant user. Stingray Boats, you may be familiar with them. They make those really fun motor boats and jet ski boats you see out on the lakes during the summertime. They were having trouble making a production order report of a certain level of complexity. So they came to Cyberquery and wanted to do it in here. And Jim Mon actually helped them build this as well. So if you look at the left side of the report, it's actually pretty straightforward. It's really just showing details on the make of a particular boat. The right side is where the fun is. They wanted to track the scheduling of when they got a quote, and then when a particular job got to the work center, and then when it was completed. So in order to do that, they had to recursively join back into the job route and the job schedule table in order to calculate that status. So from there, once it was built, they can update this every few minutes, and then they can drill down into the different jobs to get more info on it. So this is a report that they use every single morning. I believe it's sent out to all the people on the floor just to know what's ahead, what's coming up on the day. And then here's an example of a dashboard that we built out for NIC Global, called an efficiency dashboard. So they wanted to visualize the status of what was going on the shop floor, and their operations manager had this idea of stoplights. So green is showing that there are no jobs over standard, yellow is showing that there's one job over standard, and red is showing that there's more than two. So if we look at the turd group, it looks like there's one here, so we'll click on that. And it's able to go in there and see what is going on at that work center. And then from there, you can drill down again and you can see what is happening at that particular job. And you can drill down again and you can see the people that are actually working on that job and if they are under standard or not. So this is actually on the floor, so on a touchscreen monitor, so people can come by and they can click through and check the status of particular jobs at whatever set they need to access. And here's some examples of some dashboards that we built out. They can be pretty complicated to build. A lot of times they're involving a lot of different sum reports being imposed onto a certain screen. So the one here on the left is a daily snapshot of performance. This one's refreshing every few minutes to just give a view into the business at any given moment. Executives really tend to like this one. And this one on the right is a strategic dashboard, and it's looking at revenue, AR aging. So this one, just something that you can have refreshing and check. And then obviously from there, you can go in and you can drill down on specific pieces of information. And just another example of some that we're able to build in Cyberquery. And as Jeff was saying, there's a lot of love for Excel when it comes to Cyberquery users. And we've been really working to make sure that plugin is working well and there's a lot of functionality there. So this is actually something that Jim built. It's pulling in real-time data straight from the ERP through Cyberquery and then into Excel. And it's actually incorporating multiple reports from CSI. So this blue one here, and this green one and this gray one are all different reports, and then these dashboards are built off of those. And then if you look over here in the bottom right, there's a yellow few columns here. Those are actually calculations built off of those reports. So you can build out a model or a forecast, have that data be updated in real time with a simple refresh, and then you can share it to whoever might need to view this information. And then, as Jeff was mentioning, I wanted to talk a little bit about a new module that we have, and that's the financial report writer. It leverages Cyberquery and creates an environment for finance teams to create, edit, and automate those more complex financial statements that require a little bit more rigid building. So the FRW module in Cyberquery allows proper integration with reporting to avoid data discrepancies, minimize manual processes, which can result in errors and inefficiencies. I mean, how many times have you been to a meeting and people are working on different Excel sheets and everyone's coming up with different numbers? This is made to mitigate that as much as possible. Because once the statements are made, it's very easy to edit, share, and automate them on a recurring basis. So it's really made for this three-statement model. So income statement, balance sheet, cash flow statement, as well as other reports beyond that. So profit loss, risk reporting, or a sales forecast. And then here's an example of a drill down from a income statement. I'm going to go into more detail on this later, planning on having a webinar completely surrounding financial reporting and the financial report writing module in July. So if you are interested, let me know. Real quick, if any of this looked interesting to you, you'd like to give it a try, we do offer a test drive period. So for 30 days, we'll give you access to the software. We'll actually install it on your server, connect to your database, create the data dictionary for you and any other systems that you might want to incorporate. And it will actually help you build some reports. So maybe there's a report that you haven't been able to build or you would like to build at some point. We can help you build that. And then you can play around with it. You can try building your own reports. And at the end of those 30 days, if it's something that you want to continue with, we operate on a SaaS model based off users. So you can cancel at any time. And once you get running with Cyberquery, we offer a training for you and your team. So necessary people can learn how to build reports and navigate Cyberquery and publish reports so you're not left high and dry with the new software. We want you to be able to run with Cyberquery. And then, of course, there's consulting opportunities as well if there's something larger that you want to build, like one of those behemoth reports or a dashboard that's incorporating a lot of different information. All right. That concludes the end of it. Thank you so much. It's been really great getting to show Cyberquery. I think we have some time set for some questions. So Jeff, if you want to go through some of those.
Jeff,
Colin better do it because I can't find them.
Oh, okay. Sure. We have a lot of questions, but
Okay.
let me start with the first one. You mentioned Cyberquery is installed locally on the ERP server. Is the web portal also hosted internally or via the internet?
It's also internally, right? We have no cloud components that are outside of Cyberquery. Everything goes on one server.
Okay. And this question is from Gabrielle. Is any SQL knowledge needed to build reports?
No, Cyberquery front ends the SQL piece so that you don't have to know it. Now, a lot of times we'll talk with prospects where they have an individual in IT, for instance, who's good with SQL, and you have the ability in Cyberquery to actually see what SQL it generated and you can interact with that if you are an SQL person. We've added that to the product, the accessibility of it, because we get asked a lot about, hey, can I see the SQL you generated? I want to see how you went about doing this particular query. So it's available to, I'll say, power users, but we would prefer for the end users not to have to worry about SQL. Our product was developed to address an audience who are not programmers. And so we like to hide the SQL from their viewing because it does the job we need it to do, but it's more complicated than Cyberquery.
Okay, and we have 4 questions from Chris. Does your tool require that CSI is working with the most current uplift version published by Infor?
I'm not an expert at the CSI area, so that one we might have to take to our team. But I would say that with CSI, we utilize the Mongoose API. In other words, Cyberquery connects to the CSI database. Oh, we've got one of our experts here piping in. Jeff, can you turn on your mic and answer that one? There's another Jeff here from Cyber Science.
Most
Here he
definitely. My name's Jeff Dabbert. I work in the professional services group at Cyber Science. I've been here just about 20 years. Just a quick brief intro. And I work almost exclusively with the Infor ERP applications. And no, excuse me, Cyberquery does not require the latest uplift or published version from it. For the cloud-based version, as Jeff Wilson just mentioned, we work with the Infor Mongoose API to deliver that data down to your server. If you're in a cloud-based, if not, we can go directly against your SQL Server on-prem, or for that matter, any other database that you have as well.
Thanks, Jeff.
And to ask, yeah, sure. And the second question, if you don't mind, I can probably just roll right through these if you like.
Sure.
There's a question about the organization has a single master database with multiple segregated sites. Can this tool be used for it? Most definitely. This tool can access in the same as Michael Janney most astutely answered earlier. We have a product called our data dictionary, and we can go across not only multiple site references, but also multiple databases within that same application. And for the distribution portion of it, question 3 is we use multiple points of contact. Jeff was showing you the launchpad where the users can go in and attempt to glean the data themselves, or we have a scheduled product called Queue Director, which can either produce an email or it can also use your network structure as well. So if you want to have, say, a batch of Excel reports delivered to a UNC or a file server on your network, we can definitely perform that task as well. And one great thing in question number 4 is not only can Cyberquery hook up to multiple versions of, say, a SQL Server database as well, it can also hook up to any Oracle server, an Informix server, any online. If say you have information in Salesforce you'd like to glean, we have an API that we can call that data down as well. So you have almost any portion of data that you've got, Cyberquery can definitely go after. Even DB2 if you like on an AS400.
Great. Thank you.
Excellent. Thanks, Jeff.
My pleasure.
And we have 2 more questions from Gabriel. How does the licensing model works? User-based, fixed, or site-wide?
So it is user-based. So there's really two sides to the licensing. There are the server components like the engine that runs the queries and the scheduler that runs the automated distribution and the data dictionary. Those are all specific to server or implementation. And then we extend out the development capability and the runtime capability to individual users. We work off of a named user model, but it's really just a count of named users. You don't have to register your users. So if you have a 10 user license, then you can expect that 10 people in the organization can use it at a given point in time.
And the last question from Matt. What are the system requirements to run on an SQL server? Is it resource intensive?
I might have to pull Jeff in on that one. We actually have a document that says various sizing recommendations for servers. I would say if you look at the nature of querying, it's not terribly resource intensive. For instance, when I was writing a query, I spent 5 minutes dragging and dropping things around. That's not a big draw on the server. Only when I ask it to run against the live data does it place a burden on the server. And even an example of my GL summary, that took 20 seconds, 25 seconds to run. So it's a burst of activity, and then it sits idle while I look at the report and search for things, or maybe if I drill down, then it'll run another report. But it's typical for our clients. I mean, if you have a lot of VM capability, you might spin up a VM and call it the Cyberquery server. But a lot of our clients will just utilize an existing Windows server in their office for the purpose of Cyberquery. A lot of times they'll keep it separate from the ERP server so they can separate the task and the burden away from the interactive ERP server. But really, it can run on any machine. In fact, I run my server on my laptop, so it doesn't need to be a really large implementation of hardware to make this thing run. Jeff, jump in if you have anything more to add.
No, well put, Mr. Wilson. Yeah, we just have we can run on the SQL Server. We don't recommend it. We do recommend you run on the same subnet as the
Yeah.
SQL Server machine just to optimize the performance as well. And if it is an on-prem, yeah, it's very resource friendly. And for that matter, now, if you are in the cloud and you'd like to download data, we do recommend that you have a bit more robust of a server at that point. And, if there are any further questions on that one, the sales group has our hardware and recommendations that they'll be more than happy to distribute at that time.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thanks, Jeff. And can you address pricing in a ballpark fashion?
In a ballpark fashion. Well, it's based on users. I would say that our minimum license configuration is going to be about $1,500 a month, 1,500 per month. That's the starting point.
Yeah.
And that's roughly 5 developers and 15 runtime users.
Thank you. By the way, Michael, can you pull out the Teams interface?
Sorry.
So
I just had
they can see Sherry's they can see Sherry's name and email address. So
yeah.
There we go.
Yeah. And one more question from Kim. Can you interface with SolidWorks PDM 3D modeling software?
Interesting. How about that one, Jeff? Do you know?
I'm not familiar with the underlying database. Could you inform me of what the underlying database that product uses?
Okay, Kim, if you would like, if you inform Jeff, that would be great. And in the meantime, Bowie asked another question. What's the procedure of getting the trial version of this service?
Great question. Reach out to Sherry or Michael, and they'll want to probably get on a call with you, find out how you're implemented and those kinds of things, and then present the solution to you. SolidWorks 3D modeling, right?
Yes.
We may have to follow up with that one. There are others we can speak with here who may have worked with it.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Kim answered MS SQL Server.
There you go.
Yeah.
Just as
Yes, and we can most definitely integrate with that as well.
Yeah.
Not a problem at all.
A good way to look at it is Cyberquery treats it as a database. It doesn't understand, or I shouldn't say doesn't understand, it doesn't care what the underlying application software is. If it's a database it knows, like SQL Server, probably the most prevalent, it's just going to go out there and we're going to interrogate the schema of the database, build a data dictionary, and allow you to access the tables. And then from there, we can build additional value into the dictionary to make it easier for you to be able to write queries.
Okay. Okay. Thanks,
and we're
Jeff.
at 11. We're at 1 hour mark.
Yeah, we're at the top of the hour. So I think there's no more question, and so we can close the webinar. And thanks so much, everyone, for joining us today. And we hope you find this session helpful and got a good look and how Cyberquery can simplify and supercharge your reporting and analytics. I want to thank Michael Janney and Jeff Wilson and Jeff GD from CyberSign Software for sharing their expertise and walking us through the software. As a next step, quickly, if you would like to explore how Cyberquery could work for your specific needs, or if you have any follow-up questions, please reach out to our customer success manager and Sherry Behzadi. They will be and Michael also, so they will be happy to schedule a more personalized session or help you get started. And also keep an eye on your inbox. We will be sending out the recording of today's webinar later today, so you can rewatch or share it with your team. And thanks again for your time. And we hope to see you at a future session. Take care and have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Con.